everyone, welcome to Viewpoint. My name is Vladimir Solubin. Right now I'm joined by the director of Mohyla School of Journalism and one of the founders of the StopFake.org website, Professor Yevhen Fedchenko. Professor Fedchenko, welcome to Viewpoint.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Mr. Fedchenko, in March of 2014, the faculty and students of Mohyla School of Journalism launched a fact-checking website called StopFake.org. What was the main goal of this website?
Yeah, the main goal was to basically bring journalism to its basics, to start checking information and to battle propaganda, because we have found that there are a lot of propaganda around, and mainly it was coming from one direction, from Russia. So the idea was why we would not start fact-checking information coming from Russian, both mainstream media and social media, and if we have found this information to be fake, we debunk it and then we publish it as wide as possible, and then using social media we spread it around to reach as many people as possible in different parts of the world.
Mr. Fedchenko, can you tell us a bit more details? How does your project, how does this website work? Who searches for fakes? Who reports the fakes? And in general, what is being done?
Yeah, so we always emphasize that this is a crowdsourced project, so we invite public to bring us fakes because we cannot monitor as much media as the audience can, so we have special button on the website saying report a fake, so anyone basically can spot a fake and send the link to our team. But on the other hand, we also emphasize that this is a professional journalistic project, so we have professional editors and they then check information as all journalists should do, and again, if they found it to be fake, we publish it, but of course we have much more clues that the real fakes that then pop up on our website.
Mr. Fedchenko, I noticed that your website is in 4 different languages: English, Russian, and then Romanian and Spanish. Can you tell us why such an interesting choice of languages?
Yeah, and we are growing, so we are about to add 3 more languages, so Italian, French, and Greek are coming in the nearest time, but originally we studied it in Russian, but mainly it was for eastern and southern Ukraine, but it appears that a lot of people in Russia are reading it, so it was a very incidental audience for us. And English was another choice because we wanted to target experts, journalists, policymakers, opinion makers in other countries and help them to follow that. And another idea behind was that Stop Fake is not only about debunking fake. So we want to monitor scenes, we want to chronicle propaganda, and we wanted, at the very first place, we wanted to explain to the world that there is a systematic government-led propaganda. And that's why we chose English as one of the languages, so we can deliver this idea again to as many people as possible.
What about Romanian and Spanish?
Yeah, Romanian was mainly intended for audience in Moldova, and it was a project with the Czech embassy here in Kyiv, and they said why we would not start working, because Moldova is another victim basically of Russian propaganda where it's overwhelming. So we started using it. We have a lot of audience over there and a lot of local journalists are working with us. And Spanish was another choice because there are some countries in Europe which are much more targeted by Russian propaganda than others. So Spanish or French or Italian would be another language of a choice. So we really want to get to policymakers and opinion makers in these countries and counterbalance Russian propaganda with that.
Mr. Fedchenko, you must be monitoring the people who visit your website. So how many people actually read or watch your news who are from Russia?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We have a lot of people from Russia coming to our website and to our video digest. And the number of people is growing because there is a huge vacuum of information in Russia, and it's easily explainable why people are searching for another sources for information. And now more than half of our audience basically is coming from Russia. And this is a great example how the truth can win by the end of the day, as I would put it. And I see the number of people from Russia growing. And also there are 2 other interesting facts, that mostly people are coming to us either from social media, so they are basically referred by their friends So there is a kind of horizontal networking between people in truth seeking, and also they're coming from search engines like Google. So people are specifically looking for truth, and they want to have as much information as possible. And this is kind of a great example that, again, by the end of the day, even if you would be lying, if you would be producing a lot of propaganda, if you would be brainwashing people, people would start looking for alternatives.
So if you Google fake news or stop fake, your website will be one of the first ones to pop up.
Yeah, but also there would be a lot of stop fakes around. So people started to stop fakes from the very beginning to confuse people again, and to make sure that people would not get to the real stop fake. So that's kind of a whole industry working around, and we have a very small team struggling with
that's
a
interesting.
huge army.
So someone is actually faking your stop fake?
Yeah, absolutely. So people are faking our website, faking our social media accounts, and trying to fake fakes, so that's interesting.
Yeah, faking the fakes, that's very interesting. Mr. Fedchenko, obviously a lot of propaganda and obviously a lot of false news, unfortunately, are coming from Russia. But do you also spot the false news, fake news, which are being broadcasted by Ukraine and Ukrainian media, and do you report these fakes as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really very important for our project to be balanced, to be journalistically balanced and to be impartial, so we do not take sides, so no one would be able to say that, well, this is Ukrainian propaganda versus Russian propaganda, so we are not Ukrainian propaganda, and that's why we monitor both sides, and if we find fakes from Ukrainian side, we also publish them. However, there are kind of minority of Ukrainian fakes, so if we would compare in numbers, so probably 98% would come from Russia and only 2% would come from Ukraine. But again, we diligently explain them and make sure that Ukrainian media also follow the basic journalistic standards.
Mr. Fedchenko, talking to you as the academic professional, obviously the information war which is raged in Ukraine right now, in the early stages during the Euromaidan revolution, then during the illegal annexation of Crimea, and during the beginning of the war in eastern Ukraine, Ukraine was clearly losing this information war. In your opinion, how is Ukraine doing right now?
Yeah, you're right. Ukraine was losing at the very beginning. That was one of the reasons that pushed us to start this project. But now I think Ukraine is doing much more better, because at the very beginning we needed to explain very basic things, and another problem was that Ukraine was put on a defensive position, so Ukraine should defend itself all the time, and that was one of the purposes of Russian propaganda, to frustrate everybody else and to make sure that nobody would have one single opinion about Ukraine, but there would be many other contradicting opinions that would be struggling with each other. And to some extent Russian propaganda was very successful at the very beginning, and people really were confused in different parts of the world. But now we have much more coherent Ukrainian narrative, and this is important, because previously there were either Russian narrative or narrative formed by Western media, which was very pro-Ukrainian mostly, but still it was not Ukrainian narrative per se. So now we have already Ukrainian narrative, and it's much more powerful, much more explainable, and so Ukraine now at least can explain itself to the world.
Mr. Fedchenko, very briefly, my final question. Just last week, the Ministry of Information launched its own multilingual TV channel called UA-TV, which main mission is also to counter Russian propaganda. I'm sure you've seen some of its contents. Can you tell us, in your opinion, how effective would that channel of information be to counter the Russian propaganda abroad, mainly for English-speaking audience?
Yeah, I think Ukraine should have as many sources of alternative information as possible. So at some point it would have a cumulative effect and would change the situation for better. So I think all the instruments and all the tools are great, and Ukraine should have much more media outlets and channels to communicate to the world.
And this is one of the reasons you've recently launched your video digest of fake news in English as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to talk to the world audience in a language that people would understand us. So that was the kind of main reason why we did that.
Well, and that's what we're here doing in Ukraine as well. Mr. Fedchenko, many thanks for finding the time to come and talk to us. This was Vladimir Sulhu for Ukraine Today, together with the professor of Mohyla School of Journalism, Mr. Kyiv Fedchenko. Thank you for watching us.